Saudi Arabia elected to the United Nations Council on Women's Rights. You better believe it. I'm Brian Lilly with Rebel.media. I wish I could say it was unbelievable, but Saudi Arabia actually getting elected to the Geneva-based United Nations Commission on the Status of Women for a 4-year term is unfortunately very believable and very real.
Having obtained the necessary majority, I declare elected from the Asia-Pacific states, Iraq, Republic of Korea, Japan, Turkmenistan, Saudi Arabia, to the Commission on the Status of Women for a 4-year term beginning at the first meeting to be held in 2018.
The Saudis, a country that, well, they make all women have a male guardian to make decisions for them, escort them when they go out, and so on. They're going to sit on this commission from 2018 until 2022. I'm sure the main delegate, by the way, will be a man, perhaps with a woman sitting 3 seats behind him, Saudi style. Check out the opening of this report by Human Rights Watch on the Saudi system of male guardianship. It says, in Saudi Arabia, a woman's life is controlled by a man from birth until death. Every Saudi woman must have a male guardian, normally a father or husband, but in some cases a brother or even a son, who has the power to make a range of critical decisions on her behalf. Amnesty International says this about Saudi Arabia. Women and girls continue to face discrimination in law and in practice, and were inadequately protected against sexual and other forms of violence. Women remained legally subordinate and inferior in status to men in relation to marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance, and could not access higher education, take paid employment, or travel abroad without the approval of their male guardian. Women also remain banned from driving. This is the latest report from Amnesty. This country has a host of other human rights problems as well, but hey, don't worry about that. They're on the UN Human Rights Council as well, so what's the big deal? They're obviously a model nation. Once you look past the torture, arbitrary arrest, the detentions, the executions, lack of basic rights and fundamental freedoms. That the United Nations would have Saudi Arabia on its Human Rights Commission and its Status of Women Commission tells you how badly this body is in need of massive reform. But I've been saying this for years. It was 6 years ago that North Korea took over the presidency of the UN Disarmament Committee, a committee dedicated to reducing nuclear weapons. Canada boycotted the Disarmament Committee while North Korea was in charge, but the UN countries just go along to get along. The reasoning for North Korea, by the way, a country that was actively and still is actively pursuing nuclear weapons, taking over the presidency of that committee, it was their turn. They went alphabetically. Countries at the UN don't want to make waves. Well, thankfully, that isn't the case right now under the United States, under President Donald Trump. Under Obama, the rule was not to rock the boat too much. The U.S. wouldn't declare the Armenian genocide so that Turkey wouldn't be upset. That's something that Ambassador Samantha Powers tweeted her regret about this past week. But with Trump in charge and Nikki Haley as his ambassador at the UN, rocking the boat, no longer an issue. On this vote, the U.S. actually forced a called vote, Saudi Arabia getting a seat on the Women's Commission. Normally, it's just rubber stamped, everyone's acclaimed. Now, many countries got 54 votes, meaning unanimous support. Saudi Arabia only got 47 votes in the secret ballot. That's good news. It's good news because not every country backed the insane idea that the kingdom of male domination should be on a world body for women's rights. But we don't know who did back them. As UN Watch points out, at least 15 of the democratic countries on this list voted for the Saudis. Now, I doubt it was the US, but it could have been the UK, could have been France or Brazil, Australia or Sweden. We simply don't know unless they tell us. Too many people in the world overlook that the UN is not what it should be. It's not a source for good. It's not a place where the world comes together. I'm not going to deny that good works haven't been accomplished, but there's also graft, corruption, the giving cover to dictatorial regimes by putting them on bodies like the Human Rights Council and the Women's Commission. The UN is not a body of the world's democracies. It's a body of all the countries, including the absolutely horrible ones. In allowing the Saudis a seat on these bodies, the UN is letting them use the organization to launder their reputation, when what they should be doing is exposing the brutal reality of life for women in that country. If the UN won't reform, then it's time to leave the UN. If you liked the Rebel video you just saw, make sure you click here and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Never miss another Rebel video again.